China irritated some neighbours and the United States recently by announcing a new air defence zone above the East China Sea. Well, now South Korea has responded by extending its own zone. Planes flying through China's zone would have to identify themselves to the Chinese. But a large part of it overlaps with Japan's zone, which was already in place. And South Korea has an air defence zone too. Its existing boundary is now being moved. It'll include islands and submerged reefs, one of them disputed by China. Well, we'll have the latest from both South Korea and China. Rob McBride is in Beijing. Let's go to Harry Fawcett in the South Korean capital, Seoul. Is this some kind of tit-for-tat move, Harry, or why have they done this?
Well, certainly it's a very direct response to what China did on November the 23rd by extending its own zone so far out into the East China Sea without warning. A lot of the attention initially on that was surrounding the islands claimed by both Japan and China, Senkaku as they're known in Japan, Diaoyu in China. But as well as that, it did encroach on the existing South Korean air defense identification zone. And South Korea has for some time wanted to extend its own zone to cover two of its own islands that weren't included when the original zone was drawn up in 1951 by the Americans. And there is this submerged reef known as Iodo here in South Korea. And that now falls under the new zone, which extends 150 kilometres or more further south of the South Korean peninsula. That reef has a South Korean scientific research station on it. It has a South Korean helipad on it. It's in a strategically important part of these waters, and now South Korea's own military aircraft can operate with greater ease in this area. South Korea trying to say that it's doing this in a more regularized way than China did a few days ago, saying that it's consulted with its neighbors, that it's leaving them a 7-day grace period before this comes into effect on December the 15th, so that it can have further consultations about how these new rules will work. Certainly the United States seems to be on board. Vice President Joe Biden was here in Seoul at the end of last week speaking to the South Korean President Park Geun-hye, and in Washington the State Department has said that they're very much on the same page with their South Korean partners in all of this.
All right, Harry Fawcett, many thanks for that from Seoul. Let's go to Beijing. Rob McBride, how is China likely to react?
Well, we are still waiting for the official Chinese reaction, but their views are already well known. They've issued statements last week when details of this plan were first announced. They've expressed their regret and said they will respond pragmatically, keeping open lines of communication with South Korea and urging the South Koreans to work within what they call international law and convention. Now, coincidentally, when China set up unilaterally its own air defensive zone, which arguably has gone and brought about this current rise in tension levels, it says and still maintains that it was working within the international law, although of that is obviously disputed by many others. Stephen?
Rob McBride in Beijing, thank you.